Welcome to the Clean Power Hour Live. I'm Tim Montague, your host, bringing you the latest and greatest solar, wind, battery energy news every other Friday. Today is May 1st, 2026, and I'm joined by my co-host, John Weaver, the commercial solar guy. Welcome.
Hello, everybody. Hey, Tim. Hope everything's going all right. I like your
I
green
I
screen. You don't
I
have a
love
background, but you have a green screen
I
on.
love technology, but I love to hate on technology. The Riverside platform is causing me a lot of grief today, so I don't know if this is working or not, but here we are. I appreciate you being here. And we've got a lot of stories, so I think we'll just dive right into the news. And I will give an update on my travels. I spent last week in Dallas, Texas at GigaWeek, a event hosted by Chin Power Systems. Chin Power Systems Americas, otherwise known as CPS America, our major sponsor here at the Clean Power Hour. Got to hang out with 300 installers, developers, and asset owners. It was an amazing week. I also did a tour of ELM Microgrid, which we'll be releasing an episode on in the coming weeks. But I just love hanging out with Chint customers because I learned so much about what's going on in the industry. And no surprise to you or the audience, John, one of the things that we talked the most about was batteries and the evolving landscape in the US market. There's still just a handful of markets where batteries make really good economic sense. And I'm on a mission to document how batteries and microgrids are impacting the grid and helping consumers fight back against rising energy costs. And that is a very important thing. The New York Times reported this morning, I think, John, that gasoline prices have gone up 30%. Um, and electricity prices have gone up 30% in the last 5 years for consumers. So we're feeling the pain, and there is an answer in the clean energy transition that some people in Washington, D.C. have not seemingly understood. But um, do you have a high level on batteries before we get into the anti-dumping duties and solar imports from India, Indonesia, and Laos, which is our first official story?
Yeah, I mean, you hear me every week, every time we're on the show talking about batteries heavily these days, and there's one or three battery stories in our list. Batteries are the thing we've been hearing about for so long. What happens when the sun goes down? What happens when the wind doesn't blow? And really, it's a new expertise that we all have to gain. ELM, we actually have a quote for one of our projects, a standalone, oversized, DC coupled solar plus storage system in mass. As soon as I get through some documentation with the state, I'm going to start spinning back to the batteries. And ELM put together a great quote with good sizing and all the gear I needed. And batteries aren't going to stop. We're in the early midst of it. We're just at the front edge. We're starting to see leading markets like California really start to evolve. And we're now starting to see, and we'll see a story on our list actually for Europe, how they're where California was a little while ago, and it's starting to evolve there. Um, these there's another story we have about LG and them doing batteries. I could have put 10 battery stories on this list. It's just it's what's coming. And as I said, we need to get better at it. It's interesting you mentioned gas, and I brought it up like two or three shows ago. I was like, oh man, I expect the price of electricity to go up faster. But this week I saw an interesting story from Bloomberg, and I didn't even put it on the document, but the Bloomberg folks are saying that there's so much gas available that there's no place to go. Like every truck is filled up, and some people are paying people to take the gas so that they don't have to shut off their machines and shut off their pumps
Yeah.
because of various reasons. And it's pretty interesting. So batteries are coming, man. and they're not going to stop, and they're growing and growing. And one of the last stories on our document mentions how much battery capacity is being constructed right now, and that's not going to stop. It's
Yeah.
it's it's big. It's coming hard.
So I dropped an episode on Tuesday this week with a company called Brevian Energy. That's on screen now. This is Rod Matthews, the CEO of Brevian. This is a solar developer in North County, San Diego, and they're working with a CCA, a community choice aggregator, which is a unique entity to the California market. But there are various forms of aggregation around the country. Basically, you get a group of cities who come together and they collaborate on buying energy and doing interesting things. In this case, like they have developed a clean energy alliance solar plus battery program, and they're installing third party owned commercial size batteries. So these are megawatt hour plus projects, and the host is getting paid a lease payment and also reducing their energy spend and also getting some resiliency from the facility. So the utility is guaranteeing that they'll reserve 20% of the battery for resiliency. So anyway, this model that is being rolled out in parts of California, this is Brevian is in SDG&E territory, is one that I think that we're going to see in a lot of markets just because it is a very low cost to entry. That's one of the problems with batteries, John, is the capex, the out of pocket on the front end is significant. Even if you have a short payback period, you have to come up with those resources, and that can be a challenge when you're trying to do a lot of other things. So,
No different than solar, though. It's same challenge we always dealt with solar. A lot of
well, yes, it's
capex.
solar. It's that same challenge on steroids because the capex is so much greater. You know, a solar
Mhm.
project, let's just say um, a solar project is $500,000. And if you want to pair a battery with that $500,000 solar array, you might be looking at $1 million+ battery. So yeah, it's just more it's more money. The ROI is greater and the value of the asset as a solar plus battery facility is much greater because it truly offers some resiliency depending on the size of the battery and things like energy arbitrage and things like grid services, right, that a solar array is never going to do for you.
Mhm.
So, well, let's talk about PV Magazine. You found a story about the AD.
Yeah, this is going to affect people directly and quickly. Solar imports. I mean, we can read it off direct from the document, just so. I mean, I'm sure everybody that's buying modules they know, but U.S. Department of Commerce has announced its official preliminary determinations of what they will add to the cost of solar modules from India, Indonesia, and Laos. And India, which has become the second largest manufacturer of solar panels globally, if they want to send modules here, they're essentially going to be doubled, 123% uh,
Yeah.
tariff. Indonesia, 35%. Laos, 22%. So we're just doing the same old thing that we've done. We're jacking up the price of solar panels so that oil and gas can go just a little further. That's really what it is. And so First Solar can meet their quarterly stock numbers and keep ramping. And it's just not going to stop because First Solar has the nose of plenty of politicians, and they're going to keep fighting anybody that brings in modules. And this is the most recent attack. And so if you get a chance to buy some modules from some place and you're like, wow, these are really cheap, you better buy them now. Get them on shore so that any tariffs that might come later can't be applied to you because this is just our world. Is we're just gonna keep paying tariffs on solar related gear because we're an oil state.
Yeah, the companies listed here, First Solar, Hanwha Q Cells, and Mission Solar, are well-known names in domestic manufacturing in the US, and that list is growing. Canadian Solar is building a factory in Indiana. I mean, there's T1 is in the news a lot. and I think Jigger Shah just had T1 on his new podcast.
Cool.
They're planning to do the whole 9 yards, ingot to wafer to cell to module, and and then so they're seemingly these domestic manufacturers are trying to build a moat, which is very ironic, right? Because some of them, like Q Cells, obviously is a very international, global company, and they have production in multiple countries. Um, they're trying to create a wall, though, right, against low cost modules coming in from overseas. And then I had a conversation with Dean Solon, who I mentioned last 2 weeks ago on the live, and we're about to drop the full interview with Dean. It'll be coming out sometime this coming week, I think. But Dean Solon, the creator of Shoals Technologies, the eBOS company, now has a company called Create Energy. And Dean initially went to market, or was going to go to market with uh, a native manufactured solar panel, and he's backed off of that because of all of this chaos that he has witnessed.
Wow.
And he's very skeptical about the ability of companies to establish this what I call the whole 9 yards. I don't know, is there a technical term, John, for a company that makes all of the parts and pieces of a solar module in one place?
Vertically integrated.
Thank you.
Well, I don't know about one place, but at least if
Yeah,
I don't know if it's one building, but if it's underneath
one
one
country.
company, yeah, one vertically integrated. Yes.
Um, he commented that it was just too, for example, laborious to permit a project um, that makes solar cells, for example. So anyway, it's interesting. I I feel the pain that installers and developers go through when procuring modules, because they're just being whipsawed by these these wins, right?
Yep.
And they just want quality product that's at a reasonable price, bottom dollar, right? Um, it's not complicated, and the federal government isn't helping our industry, though. They're just creating friction and chaos.
This is true. Yeah, getting modules, this domestic content stuff, it's very challenging. I'm going through a procurement process right now. It's going a little slow, but it should be closing up shortly, and then I'll be able to talk up some cool modules that I'm getting. But it can be a challenge. Right now, it's really challenging. People are trying to lock in supply. There's Section 232 coming, probably. So we need to, at some point, you're going to hear us discuss the outcome of that ruling. I'm trying to get my modules procured fully in my hand before Section 232 hits, so I don't pay an extra tariff. But yeah, it's challenging. It's really challenging.
So there's a pending ruling.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So we probably talked about this a year ago once, but
Mhm.
Section 232 is a new global anti-polysilicon ruling, which is thought to add anywhere from, and this is me reading my favorite solar analyst. It'll come to me in a second. He's a investor dude, um, Philip Shen, and he works for, it'll come. But in his writings, he's seeing 10 to 20 cents a watt potentially being added to any modules with imported poly. And that's everything. That's mostly everything. So he's hot to trot on First Solar stock because of this reason. But Section 232, 232, it's floating. It should have been ruled on and applied months ago. I don't, I don't know why it hasn't, but some people are saying it's being used by the current administration as a negotiating line with the Chinese because there's a big meeting between our leader and Xi of China very soon. And so
Hopefully.
232. Yeah, or hopefully it holds off for like 2 or 3 more months, and then 232 comes after I buy all my good stuff. So we'll see. We'll see how stuff goes.
And meanwhile, the tariffs that have been placed, some of them have been deemed illegal.
Yes.
So you found a story.
Well, not the
uh,
story. We could just talk about it.
You
This is
found
just
a
the website.
website by the
Yes.
U.S. Customs and Border Protection
Yep.
called the International Emergency Economic Powers Act Duty Refunds.
Refunds.
And so what's the story? And I'll put that on screen.
So the Supreme Court ruled that Trump's global energy emergency tariff was illegal. There was no energy emergency. I don't know what the exact logic was, but it was illegal. And so the 10 to 15, 10 to 50% tariff, whatever the heck it was, it kept changing. That's illegal. And anybody who paid a tariff, the individual, the company that paid the tariff, can now get those tariffs back. And this is the website. So you plug in, and this has been up for about a week, maybe two. You plug in your info, and slowly you'll get your money back for any gear you bought. Now, the key is it's not for the end user, it's for the person that imported it and actually paid the tariff and has a record of it. So you don't necessarily know if a tariff that you paid will come back to you or your customers. It will go back to the importer, though. And so whoever these big importers are, they're going to get a windfall. In fact, because they were able to pass on those costs, and
Right.
it's a very low probability that they're going to pass on that tariff. Some groups like FedEx and stuff have said they're going to try their best, and that sounds cool. But I guarantee you, I have no idea which tariffs I paid. I would only paid two tariffs explicitly that they said, "Hey, we increased your price, and here's the number you got to pay." It's like, all right, well, I get this money back. I'm going to reach out. I'll ask, but a lot of groups blended their cost because that's how you manage business. If you know your tariff, if you know your first product was say $1 and your new product's $1.50, you make your product $1.25 because you don't want to lose your customers. And so if you had a blended purchase from this tariff, how does that get figured out? How is that managed? And I don't know. I don't know. But if you're an importer, get on that website. You guys already know because you're importing and you're the ones who are being burnt by this, but get on there and get your tariff back and have some lower prices for us for 6 months or just make some money and go on vacation. I don't know. But the tariff website's up and it was illegal and that pisses me off. But hey, this is how it runs.
All right, let's talk about Tandem PV. In this case, it's a company called Tandem PV. Tandem PV is
Yes.
also a phenomenon. Tandem PV begins perovskite silicon solar panel demonstration manufacturing by Kelly Pickrell. Quick aside, I interviewed Kelly at the Chint event in Dallas, so that'll
Cool.
be coming out here in the coming weeks as well. We talked a lot about American solar manufacturing, solar panels, and batteries. So, what is going on with Tandem PV, John?
So first off, I want to say this out loud so everybody can hear it. The company is releasing a product with perovskites that will warrant less than 1% annual degradation for 25 years. That's step number one. That's it. Everybody's been talking about it. What's the warranty? This is the warranty. Less than 1%. Now, a second item is that this is a unique tandem product. It's not actually a tandem cell. It's a tandem module. And
Mhm.
and that's really interesting. It's not exactly the thing that made me go whiz bang over the last years, but talking with somebody who's really close to this company, it seems like this could be effectively the same thing. So what they do, you have a standard silicon solar panel underneath, and then your module's glass is where the perovskites are. And so you have two unique modules almost inside of your module. And then they connect, I guess, in the back of the module at the junction box. I'm not exactly certain how the wiring comes together,
Yeah.
but
So it's
it's
almost like 2 different solar panels smashed
almost,
together in a sandwich.
yeah, yeah, totally. And reading their stuff, they see a pathway towards similar efficiencies like 33, 34% eventually as they get better in scale and do things well. I believe their first module is gaining on 30%, but
Yeah,
I'm not 100.
29.7 it
Yeah,
says.
there you go. And apparently they're sort of sold out. They can only make about 40 megawatts right now per year, and half of it's done by hand, so that's not the best product. But that volume that they're doing is going to testing institutions and module manufacturer or module buyers and various groups. So they're sold out essentially, but sold out to people that want to see their product, to test their product and see if it's a viable product. And all of that is kind of exciting to me. And I communicate regularly on the tubes with a gentleman who's been investing in them for a very long time. So it's pretty cool. It's pretty neat. Perovskites are coming to bark. They're here, and we're going to be touching them soon.
Yeah, we're gonna have another perovskite company on the show, Swift Solar, who we've reported on here on the show, and they're making a tandem cell.
Yes.
So they're going to manufacture cells that layer perovskite on PV, and yeah, looking forward to that. That'll be maybe out in a month or so. So um, yeah, the drumbeat of perovskites is definitely happening. I I'm still curious if the LCOE is going to really is going to really work, right? This technology has to compete with, on the one end, thin film, right, for solar for utility scale, and it has to compete with crystalline PV, TOPCon, and HJT, um, traditional PV technology. Do you have a strong sense that this is really, that the timing is right and that tandem is going to sweep the field, so to speak?
So this is my belief. My belief is that a tandem solar panel is going to cost less per watt than a standard very shortly, and it's definitely going to cost. Yeah, it's going to cost less per watt because you're going to have more efficiency
Mm,
for the same glass, the same frame, the same junction box, the same back sheet. The only difference is going to be one little thin extra layer of perovskites on your standard solar module, but it's going to jack the number from 25% max efficiency to up to 35%. This group, Tandem, said that they believe there's plenty of space between their cost and what the developer needs the module to cost in order for them to make money. So, my opinion is without a doubt, like when the real Tandem hits, they're going to be the same cost. Now, maybe they'll start off more expensive simply because they can, because they have a value aspect and the value of them is higher than a standard module, but competition's going to chew that away really, really fast. As soon as three companies launch,
well,
they're going to be
logic,
competing.
but is there some simple logic here that tells me that they have to charge more because there's an additional process, whether it's at the
Sure.
cell or the module level,
Yes.
right? They're doing an extra step or two.
There's machines, big $100,000 machines. So, yes, the cost per module will be higher, say 3%, 5%. But the output per module, the wattage per module is going to be up 30%. So that's why the cost per unit can go up.
Hmm.
But the same module that was, 600 watts, it's now going to be 800 watts. And that module that was 600 watts, let's say it cost $100, the perovskite module is going to cost 110, 120. And so that's 10% higher, 5% higher, whatever it is. But the wattage is going to be 30% higher. So, yes, price per unit will go up. It should. There's a new machine. There's three machines in the manufacturing line, but the wattage is going to outpace the hardware, and that's already being seen in numbers here and there that I get to browse. So I'm bullish on that. I do think that people who are strong finance folks. So let's put it this way: the Americans that are backed by Wall Street are going to jack their price up as high as they can because they know how to do the spreadsheets. The Chinese who want to dominate, they're going to destroy it. And so give Tandem their shot, give Swift their shot. All these US companies are going to come in and sell at 50 cents, 80 cents, $1 a watt, whatever the market can sustain. But as soon as China starts pounding it, that premium is going to get consumed. So,
Yeah, I'm so curious to see how this unfolds, but time will tell.
Yes.
Okay, you found a story about Trina Solar claims world's highest efficiency for silicon solar cells with 28% efficient device by Vincent Shaw in PV Magazine. Um, this is I okay, 28% efficient. You know, they're approaching the physical maximum of what is that, 29 and a half or something like that.
Something like that. Yep. So
And
this is really cool because it's the most efficient solar cell out, or was the most efficient silicon solar cell out. Then and this module would be about 26% efficiency, and they'll start manufacturing them very soon. And the reason developers need to care about higher efficiency is that I don't know if this is exactly true anymore, but the president of Longi once said for every 1% increase in solar panel efficiency, the cost of the solar portion, not the transformers and all the other stuff, but the solar plant itself, the LCOE drops 5%. Now, I've done some math and I don't know, I can only make it work to 2.5%. So maybe there's just things I don't grasp. But every 1% increase in efficiency means more, the same module or
mhm.
more wattage uses the same labor, the same human, the same racking, the same concrete, all kinds of stuff. Now, other pieces have to get bigger, like the copper wire has to increase, the inverters have to go up, interconnection costs they go up because your system AC rating is higher. But it's cool. I was really entertained by this because I was like, oh man, 28%. That's awesome, and it set a new record. But the next story is really entertaining. Just note that the date on this story, real quick, before we switch, it's April 27th.
Yeah.
So, April 27th, Trina breaks the world record for most efficient silicon solar cell on Earth. And then, Tim, what happened the very next day?
This is the story about Longi.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Literally the very next day, Timothy. I just, I'm so
Longi broke
proud.
the record.
Yes. They had the record cell in their pocket, Tim, and they decided to wait until Trina was like, we're number one. And nah, we'll let you have that record for one day. So kudos, Longi, for being patient and playing the long game.
And
And
if
I don't
and
know.
if and if I'm Trina or Longi, am I investing heavily in tandem R&D, or am I just thinking, well, I'll let the others do that heavy lift and then I'll just buy them once they get established?
No, because Trina and Longi have some of the highest rated tandem solar cells and Jinko.
So
I
they're
think
doing their own tandem R&D.
Yeah, I think Longi might be the highest one I've seen, which is right at 34%.
Mhm.
So they Longi already now the CEO, the former CEO of Longi, who retired and moved into the R&D department recently, he he said perovskites about a year or two ago, maybe a year ago, he said perovskites were still a little early. They needed more testing to compete with pure silicon. So he was a little, and he's a very technological advanced person and very honest. So when he said that, I was like, but it could also, yeah, I don't think he was BSing for sales reasons to, keep everybody liking his silicon product. So it made me, him and Jenny Chase, they are people I respect. And both of them kind of keep me in check when my whiz bang new awesome tech, energy starts bouncing around. So they're coming. All the big boys are doing perovskites. And as soon as somebody lands it, they're all going to start rolling them out. They're here. They're here, but spread out everywhere. And we're going to see them very shortly, man.
I just hope it helps us bring down the cost of solar. As you and I know, and our listeners know, the soft costs of solar are also a major problem. The technology can get more affordable and more efficient, but we have some significant problems with permitting and installation, right? That are not going to get solved by technology. Well, not by solar technology, other
Correct.
technology, permitting technology. Uh, all right. So here's a story in energy storage news. LGES says manufacturing spend puts company on track for 50 gigawatt hours plus US ESS production target.
Yes.
Yeah,
So,
ESS is coming to America.
so
Except this is Ontario, Canada.
no, there's 5 factories. One of them's in Ontario. So there's 2 in Michigan. I believe there's 1 in Kansas. I don't know where the 4th one is, and then, of course, the one in Windsor, Ontario. So that's their 5 facilities that will be online by the end of 2026, and it's gonna be over 50 gigawatt hours of capacity per year, which is awesome. That's just under what we installed in the entirety of last year. I think we did
Yeah.
60-ish, 50 to 60, and this is right next to it. It's projected we'll do like 100-ish. I don't know the exact number off the top of my head, but we might double last year. And these guys could do half of it hypothetically. They said a couple of interesting things that I liked, or well, one particular, their next cells that they're working toward deploying will be 15% less than the current product, and they see that product deploying by 2028. So we should expect to see cells continue to fall in price. And I don't know exactly what their technology is here, but they noted in the article they have a lot of battery stuff. I don't really know the high end stuff, but they have dry electrode processing, a solid state we hear about constantly, and then sodium. And it's interesting to see sodium moving beyond the big Chinese manufacturers like CATL and BYD, because sodium is maybe, I don't know. Sodium they say is going to be cheaper because sodium is more available than lithium, but it's not as energy dense, which will mean you still need a bigger set of balance of system gear. If you can fit 10 megs in one container and 6 or 7 or 8 in another, all the container and the inverters and the heating gear, all that stuff costs money, and that's the same on either container, but one holds 10 and one holds 8. So cost per kilowatt hour, sodium might right now cost more than lithium, but as it scales, it's gonna hypothetically cost less. So it's cool to see LG working on these things and
Do you
saying
have
that their US stuff will
do you have a
follow.
prediction when the crossover is gonna happen for sodium, when sodium will become more economical and competitive on a density basis?
I don't have a prediction because I'm not
Is it
enough, but
5 years?
I was
Is
going to
it
say early 2030s, just
yeah.
from things where I'm reading and my memory is slowly touching. But I'm going to guess early 2030s is uh is when it will maybe meet the same costs. But it has to scale. There was a purchase this past week. It's not on the dock, but a 60 gigawatt hour procurement from Hyperstrong, who is a big integrator, a global battery integrator, Chinese, and they bought 60 gigawatt hours, or set up a deal with CATL, with CATL. So that's like what the press was calling, or at least CATL was calling, a breakthrough deal for sodium, saying this is the start of big procurement and people believing in it. So it's I don't know how long, but as it scales, we'll find out. Because I mean, right now lithium is just scaling massively.
Says here that Tesla has committed to investing 25 billion in 2026. Um, I'm curious how big that 25 billion is relative to what LG is doing. I don't see
Yeah.
a number for LG here, but this is clearly a very big investment, though. 5 factories,
Yes.
and
And 3 of them are already up, though, of course, but 2 of them are under construction.
we as we've reported on, I think, John, one of the trends in this market is that companies like LG have been pivoting away from EV cell production to stationary storage cell production, right?
In the US, at least.
Yeah. Yeah, because we've been raining on the EV parade. Now, ironically, EVs are the hottest thing since sliced bread because of gasoline prices skyrocketing because of the war in Iran. So the feds have unintentionally caused a resurgence in interest by the American consumer in EVs.
Yes, they have.
I'm not one
Yes.
of them. I want to be an EV owner again, but my my technology that I trail around called a sailboat prevents me from doing that. Technology is always a double edge.
True.
All right, we have time for one more story.
Wow. We've already been talking for a while. How about this one? Um, Republicans have submitted a new proposal to re-up the commercial tax credit
I
this
heard
time.
about this. I heard about this, and it is, um, in my opinion, not that surprising. I'll put this on screen, but what's the story and who wrote the story and where?
It's from Solar Power World, one of my favorite places to read, and it's probably written by Kelly because
Billy Lutt,
Kelly.
I think.
Oh, Billy's great. Billy's really tall. Did you know that? He's like six
Billy's
three.
taller than me, which is
Oh,
unusual.
there you go. Billy's cool. Billy's a nice guy. I've met him a few times, and I love reading him and Kelly and everybody at Solar Power World. Um, it's just, Republicans put it out. It's politics. Historically, Trump was the last before Biden. Trump actually extended the ITC. He signed off on an extension of it. So the politics of this is one of the most positively um, political documents that people like in the United States. Solar power is, I know I've written this headline, is more popular than apple pie in the United States, even with all the negativity it gets. And so this legislation is something that could occur if there are Republicans who feel the need to bolster their November chance. Um,
Yeah.
but at a minimum, what we do see is that across the board, as the political regimes continue to evolve, we'll see what happens with this. Every time I see this stuff, I get a little excited. But this is it just hit the news last week. It's a new piece of legislation that's floating out there. There's already Democratic versions of this out there in other ways, but this is just keep it in your heads, keep watching, keep
So as
building.
things stand today, the ITC, the commercial solar ITC is going away at the end of 2027 unless you
Yes,
safe harbor by July 4th of this year, and then that gives you an additional 2 years of runway, is that right?
four, four
So
as
to
long as you
2031?
no from you four
Oh, 20
years from July 3rd, 2026. So until July 3rd,
of 2030.
2030.
Okay.
Yes. So yeah, so for the big players, not for guys like me whose projects take 6 months to build, but for the big players, they got a runway. And if you do things like buy a transformer and they start to build the radiator, is what I'm told, and those take a long time, that begins your construction. And that's the key. So
It's not really 4 more years, though. We have to be specific about this because right now it's expiring at the end of 2027.
correct.
July of 2030 is 2.5 years out from that.
28,
Yeah,
29.
28,
Yeah.
29.
So an
So,
extension of 2.5 from the end of 27. Good point. That's a really good point.
yeah.
Yes.
But fear not, there is life after the ITC. I stand by my words on that. I've talked to enough people that are very smart, much smarter than I, who believe this. The solar industry is going to be here for the long haul, and we need to continue to drive down the cost of solar and become more efficient and cut the fat out of the industry and cut the profiteering. Um, we're headed for quite a ride. We're riding the up of the coaster right now, John, right? There's a mini boom happening. But hold on, because if the ITC does not get extended, then there is going to be a bust in 2028, maybe as early as next year in 2027.
Not my company. We're going to be packed. We're going to be figuring out how not to mess up at the end of 2027 by
Yeah,
taking construction risk. We need to focus and work hard.
lean into your strengths. Continue to diversify is one of my piece of advice. go hard after battery storage, go hard after microgrids. It's okay if you want to do something adjacent also like roofing or HVAC if you have those chops, but I just say lean into your strengths and um, focus on making your operation more efficient. That's going to help you ride through the down period if there is one. I mean, here in Illinois and in other similar markets, there's not going to be much of a downturn because we have such good legislation, right? Good state incentives, the emergence of VPP and front of the meter storage and utility storage. There's so many drivers, but those are very state specific. So, well, we've done it again and we're out of time. I want to thank you, John Weaver, for being here every other week. Check out all of our content at cleanpowerhour.com. We've launched a new website. We used to have two websites. Now we just have cleanpowerhour.com. All of
There
it
you
is
go.
there. My consulting or advisory services are there, and all of the episodes of the Clean Power Hour. So check that out. And please tell a friend about the show. That's the best thing you can do to help others find this content. John Weaver, how can our listeners find you?
Commercialsolarguy.com. That's it. That's my website. Got a phone number, got an email, or you can come to Cambridge, Massachusetts, and I'll buy you a beer.
And that's a good place to hang out. There's a lot of energy companies in Massachusetts. I unfortunately only go there for RE Plus in February when it's not very nice, but maybe I can manage to go to Boston twice this year. Find me an excuse to go to Boston, John.
Absolutely. Me. Buy you a beer, Tim. Come on. I'll buy you two. You're a tall guy. You need two beers.
All right. Well, thank you all for being here. We do this for you. And with that, I'll say, let's grow solar and storage. I'm Tim Montague. Have a great weekend, John.